So you had about a month to study for your exams, and oh shit, the exam's tomorrow already. Now the thing is, I thought it was a me problem since, I hate myself. But then I asked you guys and literally 90% of you guys feel the same way. So instead of making a how to cram your exam video, I thought it'd be better to tackle the deeper issue that's causing to cram for our exams. So here's why you keep cramming your exams and how you can fix that so you won't cram for your next exam, unless your exam's tomorrow, which in that case, God rest your soul. So first we need to understand why we cram in the first place, and I can describe that in one word. Can be described in one word: urgency. The feeling of panic because, oh my god, it's 11 p.m. and I have an exam tomorrow at 8 a.m. and I haven't studied a single thing and I'm utterly fucked. And because of this urgency and panic, it urges you to open your textbook or review your material for you to start reviewing the heck out of it, trying to spoon feed everything into your brain, hoping that you'll grasp at least some percentage of your study material. Basically, it's your last resort, or your only resort. And that's the thing, the fact that it's your last resort is what motivates you to study. So why is it that it's so easy for us to start studying and cram for exams, but it's so hard to study in our own in advance? Well, in order to understand that, you'll need to understand what we call the Yerkes-Dodson law. So you notice how whenever it's your summer break and you tell yourself, I'm gonna do this and that, I'm gonna be muscular, I'm going to be doing this goal, I'm going to be opening this business idea, and then you wake up and it's already the first day of school. Well, that can be attributed to the Yerkes-Dodson law. Basically, you can boil down this law into how it relates stress and performance. And no, that is not a sexual euphemism. The Yerkes-Dodson law states that stress can be a good thing. It can be a good benefactor to your performance. It states that you need a certain amount of stress in order for you to perform optimally. This is the reason why whenever you're stressed, you kind of start doing things. That's why you start doing things better. Who knew? And you may be telling yourself, okay, that means I'm just gonna start pressuring myself to start cramming more. Basically, I'll do good when I pressure myself. That sounds like a euphemism for sex. But the thing is, that's not the whole story. We need to take a look at how Yerkes-Dodson law affects simple versus complicated tasks. Studies show that people have a very big threshold when it comes to stress with simple tasks, which literally means that when you're doing simple tasks, when you're stressed to the max, you'll be performing the most optimally. Example of simple tasks are tasks that don't require that much brain power. So for example, washing the dishes, cleaning your house, doing the laundry. If you're stressed to the max, you will do it most efficiently, unless you're angry and you're throwing everything around, but you get the point. On the other hand, complicated tasks that require brain power, such as studying, anything under that umbrella, it needs a moderate amount of stress for you to perform optimally, because if you're just stressed out of your mind, your performance will end up dwindling down. It will start decreasing. So you need to find that sweet spot of stress to make you perform moderately good. Studies showed that people in the low end of the stress and the high end of the stress level didn't perform as well. People who were in the middle, however, with the right amount of moderate stress, performed the best. And this is the problem when you're cramming your exam. You're basically stressing yourself almost to the max, that you will end up dwindling your performance when it comes to studying and your exam in consequence. Granted, the good thing about cramming is that it gives you motivation to study because you literally have no other choice. Basically, you're giving motivation to study because your exam is inching forward and it's getting closer and closer. However, given that stress, you start performing worse and you end up not retaining most of the things that you've been studying, which might end up showing in your final exam, which is important. While studying for exam will make you good for the exam, I don't think long-term wise it would be a wise thing to do, because even if you cram for your test right now, you're just going to end up forgetting after 2 months, which is, in the long run, I would assume pretty bad. So, how do we stress ourselves to the point where we're moderately motivated to study? And how do we avoid cramming in the first place? Well, in the study, it states that in order to induce stress to your body, a task must be unpredictable or novel. Now, how do we use that to our advantage? So how the hell do we give ourselves moderate pressure? And no, I'm not talking about a massage. If a task is too complicated or hard, don't just gung-ho through it and just try and sit through an entire topic in one sitting. Rather, try splitting it down into different topics or different sections for you to sort of understand each tidbits before understanding the whole picture. Try to really break it down so that you can understand it much easier and much better. If a topic's too hard, we won't be motivated to study, so just break it down and make it easier to understand understand, or if you want, you can try and relate it to something that you already know and to sort of apply it from there. If a topic is way too easy, then I don't know why you're watching this, but if the topic is way too easy, then try and challenge yourself with more challenging topics. Remember, your goal is to challenge yourself to the point where you're somewhat challenged, but you're not too challenged. You know what I mean? Managing the difficulty of your study is what will make or break your motivation when it comes to studying. So make sure to set it up where you think that it's a moderately challenging topic to study. Try to balance the difficulty and try to start the habit of studying every day. It will become muscle memory for you to study every day, and therefore you will not cram in the first place because it will be part of your routine. Which moves me to my favorite rule, the 2-day rule exam. Basically, I made this up, but every time you study, try to imagine that your exam is literally 2 days from now. Now, why would you tell yourself that? Well, basically, this would induce a stress response and it would motivate you to just start studying. Because shit, if I had an exam in 2 days, I would just get off my ass and start studying, right? I find that the pressure from knowing the fact that my test is in 2 days will just instantly get me off my ass and just start studying. 2 days might be too short for some people and 2 days might be too long for some people, so just try and choose a day that makes you pressured enough for you to study but not too pressured that you would start stressing out. The goal of this rule is to basically induce a small stress response in your body for you to start studying, for you to get up your ass and just finally pick up your textbook and just start reviewing. It's very easy to underestimate the power of changing your mindset because literally you can gaslight yourself into studying. I'm not joking. Gaslighting can be a good thing. Wow, that sentence just really came out of my mouth. Now, a lot of people might tell you that you need discipline to study, which is also true. Why not make it challenging for you to actually want to study rather than you just sitting through lectures and just trying to get this over with? Try to make this fun rather than grueling. Now, tip number 3 is some activation techniques. And these are sort of techniques that help activate your brain in some way for you to start studying. Because studying is a whole set of problems, but the main problem we're dealing here is the motivation just to start studying, just to drop your book and just start studying. Tip number 1 I would give you is to literally clean your room. I know this is a very common tip that everyone talks about, but I cannot stress how important this is because the thing is, when you're studying, you really want to work 100% of your brain rather than it being distracted. And a good way to set up for that is to have a good study environment. And that doesn't necessarily mean just a clean environment. That could also mean putting your phone away, your tablet away, having nothing but, I don't know, some ambience in the background. Your goal is to really minimize the amount of distractions, not because you're gonna get distracted, even though that's part of the reason, but you're really trying to conserve the amount of brain that you will use. You get what I mean? What's the point of studying if 50% of your brain is distracted with something else? Maybe your bed's messy or maybe your phone keeps ringing. You have to make sure you're in the zone. So yeah, just clear everything, go to another room or to a cafe if you want. Make sure that you're just make sure that your brain is not distracted. The next technique I call is the 5-second rule, which I'm sure a lot of you know already, but basically if you have trouble being motivated to study, I want you to force yourself to study for 5 seconds. Whatever you do, whatever you're doing, just drop everything, go to your desk and just study for 5 seconds. And if you continue to study after that 5 seconds, and that means the 5-second rule works. Studying for 5 seconds will not only allow you to enter the flow state, but it will start to turn the cogs in your cobweb-riddled brain. I'm just kidding. And finally, the last tip is Pomodoro timer. As much as it's important for you to use your brain when you're studying, like 100% of it, it's very important that you also take breaks. I'm not saying this for your well-being, although it is, but it's also important for your brain to give it a rest. Because going back to the Yerkes-Dodson law, you don't want to stress your brain too much. You want to be at a moderate stress level. So I recommend using a Pomodoro timer or at least take breaks in between study sessions. Obviously, you can customize your Pomodoro timer to whatever time that works for you. I personally find that 50 minutes and 10 minutes work great for me, but to some others, they could probably study longer, or they could have a better break, or they could have a longer break. It's certainly up to you. But what's also good about the Pomodoro timer is not only does that help you take breaks, but the fact that you have a timer while you're studying sort of conditions you to really focus on your studying because you know that this time is reserved for studying and nothing else. Now, the last tip I want to talk about is that people are different. There are countless of tactics out there, and even for some people, what I've told you today might not be something that would work for you. There are people out there who can actually thrive when they cram. And although a lot of people who do that say that long-term wise it's not a good idea, I'm sure there's that one person in your class who can actually do it. That doesn't mean that if it works for them, it works for you. So try and experiment and find out what works for you. But generally, looking at the consensus, I feel like most of us should not cram. Cramming is just not an effective way to study long-term wise. So anyway, if your exam's ready tomorrow, I hope that next time you will not cram your exam just as this one. Anyway, don't forget to drink your water, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye!